And if you are like Dawkins or Sam Harris, then the solution is obvious. Religion is either just malignantly stupid or an accidental byproduct of other mental processes, so get rid of it, right? That's Dawkins' thing, is let's just get rid of it. Sam Harris says the only demons we must fear are those that lurk inside every human mind: ignorance, hatred, greed, and faith. His emphasis, which is surely the devil's masterpiece. Now, if you follow the idea that supernatural religious beliefs are accidental byproducts, that makes a lot of sense, does it not? On the other hand, if they are evolutionary adaptations, then it is neither feasible nor desirable to attempt to shrug them off as if a monkey can decide to no longer be afraid of snakes. Right now, that doesn't mean that religion does not have problematic manifestations. All of us know that human beings are innately fond of sugar, because for most of human history, liking glucose is highly adaptive, is it not? But now that there's redwood-sized Twinkies at every convenience store on the planet, it has turned some of us into miniature dirigibles. So what was highly adaptive in one context has now gotten us into trouble in another. Ditto for the desire for sex. Does it make sense that any of us who has kids know that we'd have far fewer of them if sex wasn't plenty fun? And from an evolutionary point of view, sexuality has served us very well. But now with internet porn, it's the same as a giant Twinkie. I don't think anyone wants to argue that the desire for sugar or sex are accidental byproducts. They are rather unfortunate and unanticipated manifestations of what is innately good in its original environment, but problematic because of current conditions. And I'll leave you with just one closing thought, and that is that if what I've said here this evening is even close to correct, the trick is to not throw the proverbial baby out with the bathwater. With all due disrespect to Sam Harris, I don't think faith belongs in the same sentence with ignorance, hatred, and greed. And I think that it would do us a great disservice and certainly misrepresent Becker's ideas. He said that psychology, properly understood, deposits you at the doorstep of religion. And I think a nuanced view of religiosity in light of where we now find ourselves in our present historical moment is most assuredly called for. And if what I'm suggesting this evening has merit, I think the trick is, as trite as it may sound, following Paul Tillich, is how do we get the best out of our fundamentally, innately religious tendencies while purging what the British historian Karen Armstrong in her book, The Battle for God, notes, which is that all the world's great religions have always been hijacked by a tiny lunatic fringe who declares that God has chosen, generally him, to rid the world of evil. So for me, it's not how do we dispose of religion, but how do we creatively engage ourselves with it to render it suitable to the world in which we now inhabit, in the hopes that our children and their children will be in a position to partake of life in the same joyous way that we do when we're at our best. That's enough talking. Thank you very much. Thank you. I think we have a bit of time for some questions or comments, and then we can kind of break and linger. Sir?
Would you please direct your questions into a mic, because we're doing recordings. As you see, tonight we have the pleasure of having both audio and visual recordings. And so please come to this mic on this side or this mic on that side.
I never heard of you, so I was just curious what your degrees are in and what you teach at Skidmore. And then the second question is, if you were advising the U.S. government and dealing with religious groups and fanatics who hijack their religion for evil purposes, how would you advise them to deal with that?
Both good questions, sir. I'll answer the easier one. My degree's in experimental social psychology, and at Skidmore I teach introductory psychology, evolutionary psychology, and then advanced seminars in things like symbols and the evolution of art and consciousness. Now, your excellent question about religion, how would I advise the government? This is a tough one. We have been in consultation with the government. I've attended several conferences about efforts to confront and offset religious fanaticism. And frankly, they have been difficult and frustrating because although there's no difficulty recognizing malignant religious fanaticism when it happens on the other side of the planet, there's been a disinclination to notice that it's in our midst also. And so the simple answer to your good question is that we have argued that, and I've made this quip before, that a fanatic in a tie is just as dangerous as a fanatic in a turban. That psychodynamically speaking, they're different sides of the same psychological coin, and we've not made much progress, frankly, because to us, the beginning of an effective grappling with this problem is to recognize its manifestations wherever they arise, including in our backyard, and that's as far as we've gotten. We are going to talk this summer at a conference about terrorism at the American Psychological Association meeting in San Francisco, where we will make similar points. We work with Iranian psychologists and we work with some Israeli and Palestinian psychologists. We basically argue that people are people, and that part of the trick, as difficult as it sounds, and in no way minimizing the fact that there's some people that would kill us if they could, is that there's really an mirror image in terms of what's happening on both sides of Earth. I wish I had something better to say, but I don't. Thank you. Go. Anybody? Mike's.
I believe Becker had a lot of problems in academia with his concepts, many of them which contain the concept of God. Do you think that academia eschews the concept of God and that they eschewed him because he dared breach that subject?
I'm not sure about that. That's a good question. Academics, myself included, are queasy about